Hello, good afternoon. This is a very, very quick introduction. We've got Halina Rice here, who's going to do a bit of talking with me on the stage after we've done a playback of some tracks that she's put together, a selection of tracks from the last couple, 2-3 albums, which we'll talk more about later. But we'll start off by playing straight away. Thank you. Cheers. Wherever you want to sit. So, Halina Rice, everybody.
Thank you.
Really,
Okay.
these chairs have been awful. So, for those who don't know you, do you want to just sort of introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an electronic music producer and AV artist. I don't do the visual, so I work very closely with a team of visual designers and also technologists to produce kind of immersive tech experiences. I would call myself an immersive first artist. So I'm basically, my objective is also always to try and find ways to envelop the audience in an experience, something that's a little bit sort of otherworldly or takes you out your day to day, which is one of the reasons that I work with spatial audio. And it's a great complement to a number of different things, including visuals. And in my shows, I do a lot of live, so a lot of lights, etc.
And so some of the tracks that we've just heard today, some were from your last album, some were from the new album that came out 10 days ago?
Like yes. So, so some were, the first time I released in Dolby Atmos, so basically I came to spatial audio like back in 2019, but that was through a live route. So the first time I then sort of moved it back almost in the opposite order to a lot of people. So I came back to releasing in Atmos first last year, which was the album Evolve. And then this year is Unreality, which the first few tracks that you saw were from Unreality.
Great. So tell us about how you came to do all of this. So, I mean, obviously, you describe yourself as an immersive artist. I'm guessing that you started with music before all of that. How did you get from being a kid all the way up to starting to make music? How did you get started in electronic music in general? Electronic
music is like way ago. When I was like little, I used to wander into my brother's room, and this was during the 80s, and he had every instrument you could imagine, like the Prophet, the Juno, the 808, everything, and I would just like go and, oh, okay, these are toys to play with, kind of thing. So I kind of, and then there's a hiatus of many years. Okay. And then weirdly, I came back. I'd always done music. I did train sort of classically originally in kind of piano initially. But long hiatus, came back into it because I wanted to learn music production software, and accidentally signed up an electronic school point blank, okay. Which was amazing. And you know, these sort of childhood memories came back, and it's like, oh, yeah, this is super familiar to me. Right. So yeah, so it was quite a strange story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is your brother still doing it?
No, he's a banker.
There you go. So you got all of his synths.
I wish they'd be worth so much.
Oh, no. Okay, so you did all of that. So so explain how you got into going from stereo, presumably, to start with, and then getting into a sort of immersive work.
So I was kind of interested. My inspirations often come not only from the electronic music world, but also from the art world. So I was really into installation artists. So if you may be familiar with Ryoji Ikeda, who does very immersive installations where you're literally, as the audience, inside his projections with sound all around you and light, and it gives you the impression that you're just simply on another planet. And also artists like United Visual Artists, who often work with a darkened room and are using a lot of laser lights and sort of directive white beams to give you, to sort of change the geometries of the room almost. So I was kind of inspired by that, as well as being inspired by people like John Hopkins, who I absolutely adore as an electronic musician, and Rival Consoles and Max Cooper and people like that. And so what I was trying to do was combine those kind of passions together to create immersive experiences. Right. I'd put together something that was AV and arrived, I was booked for a gig at Abbey Road Studios, so Studio 2, where there was a hackathon event. Right. I was very much open-minded about innovation. And L Acoustics were there with a 12.1 system. Right. And a few days before, they contacted me and said, oh, you could reprogram for spatial audio. And I was like, what, how do I do that? But with the support of their engineers, in a few days, we'd created something in spatial audio. And the software, you know, it's as usual with software, is a little bit of a frustrating learning curve, but then you're over it. And I was like, wow, that's another palette and dimension to play with, to sort of express things to an audience and create this sort of enveloping experience that I'm trying to get to.
So that kind of set you on your way. So from that experience at Abbey Road and with the L Acoustic system, where did you then take it? So you'd obviously had a great experience then. Did you were sort of the fire was lit underneath you. Yeah. How did you then carry on working that way? So brilliantly, that was 2019, and then lockdown happened. Right. So I turned my attention more at that point to getting more involved in the visual side and also some XR and VR experiences, because that was sort of more relevant. So I was sort of broadcasting myself being kind of captured in a Kinect camera over COVID times. And then out of lockdown, I actually got an Arts Council grant to do my own immersive experience and hired my own 12.1 system, okay. Put it in an art gallery in a place called Peckham in London. And the reaction of the audience was really strong. So I think also there was really a visual effect of seeing there's 12 speakers that are positioned around the audience. And for me, I think it makes people go, "Oh, this show's about me." Like it's about the listener. It's about the audience. It's not about watching me. Yeah. I actually sort of stood out the way while the visuals happened and lights happened. So yeah, that's. But you were playing that live, or you?
So that was live. Yeah, it was a live show, and it's just in this small art gallery with a slightly overcomplicated 12.1 system for like a 50-cap room, but. But the reaction was so good, and literally that prototype I've now played in over 100 shows internationally. Yeah.
I kind of find that fascinating. A lot of the people that we work with are people who are working on the record first, and then they go out and take it live. It seems very much like you're kind of entirely the opposite.
Exactly that. But I think it's an interesting one, because a lot of people are talking about experiences and people, and whether people in this world today are feeling very dissociated because of social media and mobiles, which is actually meant to be something that connects us. And I could sort of see, things occurring like sound baths or playback events where people are actually searching for high quality audio or audio event, like different styles of events than maybe before. So interesting for me, I love live because it's a connection with people, and you can create a whole atmosphere together, and it's hard to replace that. I mean, I'm also interested in how we can get to that feel through things like VR and XR as well.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. In terms of building your tracks from scratch, as it were, do you set yourself, because you've obviously got all of this space around you, and sort of contrary to most of the people we work with, are kind of used to working in 2 channels, and that's a limitation in itself, as it were. But you're starting with this big palette. Have you got kind of rules that you set yourself, or limitations that you put in place to get your sort of to get the juices flowing, as it were, to get the creative things happening, or does anything go?
I think what's interesting is the way I work with spatial has mirrored the way I work with music production, which is, for instance, with music production, while I have a sort of technical training in it, I don't want to think about scales and keys and things like that. I just want to layer stuff that makes me feel something. Okay. And at first, it's just like a sort of sandbox style mentality, and I'm just layering stuff in. It's very loose. And then over time, as you approach deadlines, etc., start getting more kind of categorized, labeling tracks, and just, okay, got to get this finished, and being a little bit more methodical about it. Similarly, what I love about spatial is that there's no rules. It's like the Wild West at the moment. Everyone's kind of coming into it. And while there might be some things that over time you sort of start to get a feel for, I mean, there's a sense, particularly for electronic music, where, for instance, like kick drums, you probably heard that the kick was extremely centered for pretty much all of the track. And again, it doesn't have to be, but I tend to keep the kick centered and the bass is coming out center. And there are certain tracks where I need to keep the percussion a little bit close to the kick because everything's working so close together that you can start to end up with slight delay issues and it doesn't quite hang together. But it's track by track, and some stuff that's very ambient, for instance, you can really play with the room, and as you can hear, there's a lot of sound design in the stuff that I do, so it's nice to kind of fire that off in lots of different places.
Getting a little bit nerdy then on that basis. What is your DAW of choice? What do you generally use?
So I started it initially in Logic, but then I swapped quite quickly to Ableton, which is, yeah.
And so do you find that working with mono sources is kind of the way you go, or do you manipulate stereo things? How does that work?
So probably the kick and the bass will always be mono sources.
Okay.
A lot of the other stuff I do often, might come with a stereo feel to it, so I'll bounce out in stereo.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because I'm creating probably from the track I do between 20 and 30 stems for every track that I produce. And even within that, there's probably 40 or 50 that I would have had as tracks in the initial production. Yeah. So sometimes I bounce that together with panning information, and then that turns into two basically audio objects, and I put them to the left and right. Okay. And then so I've already done quite a lot of spatialization within the sense of that object.
Image, yeah. Okay, cool. So in terms of, we're talking about live quite a lot, but in terms of the recorded side of things and things that would go out to the final listener in their home, how do you feel that sort of something like Atmos works against stereo for the listener?
It's really interesting because, as I say, it's sort of like almost like the last port of call for me to come to immersive, and almost like when I made my album last year, I was with AWOL, and they wouldn't, for the tier that I was on, they wouldn't release it without like 3 months notice in Atmos. So eventually I went a DistroKid, which is like the sort of lowest level of distribution. And until the day, I didn't know that it was actually going to come in immersive. And then there it was on the day, and I listened to it. I was like, yes, it feels different. But that was the first time I'd sort of seen the pipeline all the way to the end. But yeah, I felt it captured that spatial experience that I felt in live.
Yeah, it's crazy because the first time we met was probably a couple of years ago, I guess. And I remember that email saying, well, I want to release this, but I don't know quite how to. And obviously things have developed so quickly within the immersive space in the last sort of 5 years that we're at a point now where everybody knows how to do it, and it's quite straightforward. So normally at this point, when I'm sort of speaking on a stage in front of people, I'd ask, has this made the way that you think about music and the way you record music, has this changed it? Because most people are working from stereo to Atmos. Does that, that you learned this a long time ago, so you're kind of quite a way into the future now. Could you think about the other way around? If somebody said, all right, I need you to do a stereo record tomorrow, how do you feel about that? Would be a disappointment? I
think a stereo field is still a lot to play with. And always, before I was doing spatial, I was very into, okay, how can I spatialize, because stereo is a sort of a form of spatialization in of itself, because you're still kind of basically imagining objects in space, which is just the weird thing that we do, is hallucinate that sounds going from left to right are objects moving in space. So in a way, spatial was just an extension of what I was already doing. And an interesting thing is when you're producing this, it does become quite confusing because you're thinking, what if it plays out in this system? What's it going to sound in this system? How's it going to sound in stereo? How's it sound in immersive? So I do tend to use stereo as my first target, with thinking quite wide about the stereo field. And then when I go back to spatial, I'll take all the panning off and slightly start again, but with the same kind of feeling that I had for it in the stereo field.
So kind of mentally planning it out as you go.
Yeah, and there's a bit where now because I've been around the cycle a few times, as I'm making stuff, I'm thinking, oh, this could sound cool. I'm already placing it in space.
So in your room that you work in normally, that's a stereo room?
It's a stereo room. I made my own little quadraphonic system just for reference, and I use binaural to monitor. I'm very lucky that I have a couple of studios that I use that I can go and review my spatial mixes on, as well as kindly Dolby, working with the Dolby studios in London. So ideally I would definitely have my own going into the future. So that's the next, maybe 2026.
But you feel, I mean, obviously you've done 2 full albums here with this kind of workflow that you're working a combination of stereo speakers, headphones, and a bit of planning. You can kind of get where you want to as long as you can get into a studio at the end.
Yes, exactly. As long as you can review in at least 1 or 2 studios, just so that you get a kind of balanced view of not just one place, because it's also about your familiarity with the room and being able to reference that back. Yeah.
And did you enjoy today's playback?
Absolutely loved it. Fantastic to hear it in this room. So thank you so much to Dolby for organising this. Yeah, really great. I thought I could bring some lights. We could do a show.
Well, in fact, funnily enough, you are doing a show, right? Whilst you're here.
I did one last night in The Other Side, and The Other Side is 14.1.5 system.
Okay.
So basically, it was a little bit of preparation. So I actually arrived on Tuesday and spent a few hours with the engineers to make sure that because when you play in live spatial, it becomes that's an instrument. It's part of your setup because every room sounds a little bit different. So I spent a few hours with the engineer there, just making sure that all the placements worked for that room.
Yeah. I came to see you at Outernet. When was that? Earlier on in the year?
Last November.
Year.
Yeah.
That was a stereo-only show, and I kind of, having known your music a bit before, it was a bit of a disappointment to be able to, hoping that I might hear all of that, but yeah.
But yeah, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. So outside of this, so obviously, this was released 10 days ago, or the new album was released sort of 10 days ago. We've got it in a soundbar out there streaming right now. So in terms of the way that people are listening to these, have you had much feedback from your last album about the way that people have listened at home or in cars or anything like that?
Yeah, and it is still less usual for people to be listening. So it is nice, but some people have said, I listened to it, or someone's got their own system at home and they've rigged it up, and they said, I love listening to your album in immersive audio. But I think, it's a really interesting time for spatial audio altogether, because we're at that interesting time where top-end devices, so we were talking about cars, for instance, and obviously the latest generations of AirPods as well are all automatically spatially enabled. And basically the technology is just going to start choosing that for you if there is a possibility to do so. So that's actually going to drive backwards into production, which is something I do a few masterclasses at universities and on immersive shows, and I'm kind of like, you must kind of get into spatial now, because originally I was in digital retail,
right, okay.
and I kind of was like this, traditional retail was like, well, stores. That's it. Digital retail won't be anything, and it's like I think
you'll find.
I think you'll find, yeah. So I feel the same about spatial audio. I feel like there's a wave coming, and it's not the same as the 5.1 and 7.1. Before.
No, absolutely. My experience from studios in London 25 years ago was very much, we put a 5.1 system in the studio, and now you have to work this way. But it was a very different, it was a long time ago. People were buying CDs. They then had to buy this other disc, this other player, this other AVR receiver, and then have 5 speakers in their living room, and that was the only place they could listen to it. This is a very, I was a massive cynic, to be honest, but when my old boss said, let's look at putting Dolby Atmos into the studio, I kind of went, oh no, I'm going to spend all this money on speakers and it's going to be my fault in a few years' time. But the first thing I discovered is it works on headphones, it works on soundbars, which I'd experienced. Cars was another one. This was only about the same time, about 2019-ish. And there was one brand of car that it was kind of rumored to be something that would have Dolby Atmos. But here we are in 2025, and there's 30 car brands that have announced that they're already doing Atmos. So exactly that.
It's just going to proliferate, I think.
Exactly. So we're nearly at time, but has anybody got any questions in the audience?
What, sorry?
A bullet time effect.
I don't know what that means, sorry.
Like the dancer was...
So the dancer, you want to know what that is?
Yeah.
So
how did you do it?
This is a big project I've done this year. So I've been working, I was really inspired. I saw some stuff about this technology called Gaussian splat. It's a bizarre name, but so what Gaussian splat does is you film it in a volumetric studio. So basically that dancer is actually got 45 cameras around her in a sort of a green screen studio. We were able to take like 40 seconds of her dancing is about 2 terabytes of data, which we then have to process. But with that, you can pick any angle at any time of her performance. So the exciting thing about that is that what you can do is VR and XR ready. So basically I could put that into a VR headset and you could walk into those environments and be around the dancer, or you could pick, or you could lift her up and move things around. So Gaussian spatial is a very innovative way of doing it, and it's a little bit more accurate than, for instance, using point cloud data. But it's, I work with a studio called Target 3D, who very kindly donated a lot of their time and technology to help me do it. But yeah, hopefully we'll build on that into an installation or something in 2026.
There's another question at the back there. I don't know if you can get the microphone.
Hello. I've spent the last day or so investigating immersive audio. I've listened to a few systems. And what I really want to hear is some Doppler effect as some stuff's moving around or going front to back.
Okay.
And I haven't heard. Do you know of anyone who's? Do you just have to make a sound that's got Doppler effect and then pan it? Or
I guess you do. I mean, it doesn't change the pictures. Things go around you anyway. I mean, obviously with this, it's an object-based thing. So if you've got a tone or whatever, as it moves around the room, in the space, it literally pans between all of the speakers as it goes. So it's literally around you. With its binaural processing, it goes through a head-related transfer function process, so it's the same principle. In terms of the Doppler effect, I mean, I suppose, the car, for anybody that don't know, that's the kind of the phenomenon you get when a car siren goes past you and it sort of changes pitch as it goes so quickly. I mean, there's loads of plugins and the ability to do that, so I guess my advice would be to get some plugins and start making it yourself and show everybody how good it can be.
Will do.
We can get the microphone. Oh, there's one at the back there.
One short one. One short question. You're a producer. I'm an audiophile, and I listen stereo a lot. What does Dolby Atmos, in your opinion, do to the resolution of the music? Because when I listen to Dolby Atmos at home, it's always less in resolution, and stereo sounds always better at my place. So maybe it's my place, but what's your experience?
Or it could be what? The track, it could
audio resolution.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. That's not one of my experiences. My experience is that it's different, often a slightly different mix. But resolution-wise, I don't think there's any loss from that.
In
because
terms
you've got
of
a lot of more information in the same time period.
And there's a lot of information in there. So
channels.
The way that you will be probably receiving that at home is via a streaming service, I guess. And at that point, it's Atmos it's not a lossless format. It's a lossy format to get all of that information down into your.
Lossy, so.
Yes, yeah. So that's that. I mean, at the moment, most
Maybe
people are
in the future
delivering.
It will be lossless.
But potentially, that's the idea. So at the moment, most people are delivering 48K to 24-bit. The ADM master files, so that's kind of what we're working towards, and that's what's being delivered. It's actually possible to make 96K 24-bit files, but of course that still has to go to the process to get it through to the end user. So that's the part of the pipeline. That there is room for improvement, there is room for things to change in the future.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Just wanted to say, if you want to get lossless Dolby Atmos, you can get it on Blu-rays. So it's in there on Blu-rays, and there are actually lots of Blu-rays released with lossless Atmos. So, it is music Blu-rays. So there's a whole category of music releases where the albums are put on a Blu-ray, especially because it's lossless.
I'll let you guys have a conversation about lossless afterwards. We've got to wrap it up. I just want to say thank you very much to Halina Rice for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.